Yeah, Kyler Murray in the offense against Miami, absolutely. But it's the young cornerbacks that are under a microscope. Will they thrive or will they get thrashed by Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and the like? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Been doing this dang thing for 8 seasons now. Been in sports radio since 2010. Thank you for being a part of my journey, our journey, as we get into one of the weirdest, craziest, exciting, sad, and everything in between seasons the Arizona Cardinals have had, at least since my 15 years in sports media here in Phoenix. So there are a lot of things that we're going to discuss today. The can't happen list. I'm kind of doing the path to victory thing as a full show in a different way this year. I think it lends better as topics as opposed to a list. The can't happen list. Things that can't happen if the Cardinals want to win. Final segment. The offense must thrive. It's not the first topic. Interesting, because there's something that's more important. It's how do you stop the most likely Tua-led offense with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle becoming, from extinct volcanoes to very, very active volcanoes. And I'll discuss it all today on Locked On Cardinals. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. This is, like I said 3 weeks ago, like I said 2 weeks ago, like I said last week, a 2024 altering game. But this is kind of in a different way. The Cardinals having 3 wins through 7 weeks actually puts them in a better spot than what the record would indicate. Sure, the AFC has far weaker teams than the NFC, which is kind of a shift from the last couple seasons. The AFC was a deep conference. The NFC was the hierarchy potent conference with Philly and San Francisco, and then now Detroit emerging, taking the charge. Now it's a lot deeper through 7 weeks. With that said, I'm going to just rip the Band-Aid off here now. If the Cardinals lose in any sort of fashion, it is not a death nail like if they would have lost last week. 3-5 and 2-5 are very different things, especially when you're traveling cross country to plan a short week in the morning window. It's not as big of a thing. So I'm not magnifying or making something fantastical when it isn't. Every game's important in the NFL, obviously. La-di-da, got it. If the Cardinals lose this game, their season isn't lost. If they would have lost last week, it most likely would have been. So going into this game, the big story, obviously, is Tua going to play. Talked to Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins yesterday. Check that out. It was a great crossover. That's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. He thinks he's going to play. And I'm not putting words in his mouth. Put it this way. Tua's trending to play. So let's do this entire show as if he's going to play. Because if he's not, the Cardinals are going to be in a much better position. If Tua does play, that is going to revive the 2024 season for Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. Tyreek Hill, by all accounts, is the best receiver in the NFL when Tua is playing. Whatever. He's a 1%er. Him and maybe one other. Jaylen Waddle, obviously, his production even more depends on the quarterback because Tyreek Hill is just a better receiver than Jaylen Waddle is. Just the case. Tua plays. This is going to be about the offense for the Cardinals, but it's predominantly going to be about how can this young DB room soften the blow of those 2 wide receivers and adding in Jonnu Smith, very athletic tight end, who's been the best of the 3 of them when Tua's been out. So paint the picture here, or I will. I'm not telling you to. I will. Cardinals devoid of pass rush. I did you a disservice by not talking a couple of minutes about the Dennis Gardeck injury, ACL out for the year. Terrible injury. He played pretty well to start the season, has been kind of a ghost the last couple games. He got in the backfield last week, but he hasn't really been a factor. Great. He's an Arizona Cardinal. He's a lesser pillar than the others, the stars, but he bleeds Arizona red, not just red like a human. That was a stupid analogy. But a pass rush that was already bad just got worse. So with that, and Darius Robinson, and for those that don't know, Darius Robinson wasn't seen at practice yesterday. When I'm recording the show, it's still up in the air whether he's going to play or not. His mom passed away less than 2 weeks ago. So that is obviously takes precedence to everything that is around the football world. So we'll see if he plays on Sunday. The window closes, I think, on the 30th for him to practice. So they got to get him in. If he doesn't play, I'm assuming on Monday, Tuesday, he'll be back and we'll be off to the races. But when you have a parent path, I couldn't imagine playing football that week. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So that's why he hasn't been present in practice, still rehabbing as well. So with the corners, their pass rush is going to be null and void. And there's a couple things that Tua thrives on. Tua thrives on timing. Tua thrives on good protection, which allows him more time to let plays develop. And talked to Kyle yesterday, the offensive line has been better than it should be, but it's still kind of a weaker spot on the team. So this is Starling Thomas. This is Max Melton. This is Garrett Williams. And you throw the safeties in, but they're more experienced. I kind of want to focus on the DBs who are actually going to be at the point of attack defending Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. If the Arizona Cardinals can keep Tyreek Hill under 100 yards receiving, under one of his vintage Tyreek Hill games, and the same goes for Jaylen Waddle at 80% of that, they have a good chance of winning this game on the road. You also obviously still have to deal with Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, and their rookie running back who's named Jalen Hyatt, not Jalen Hyatt. God, it doesn't matter. The third string back out of Tennessee. They've got weapons, but it starts and ends with the timing, routes, and the cohesion between Tua and his wide receivers. People were negating the impact that Max Melton had last week. I thought he played pretty well. And what you're looking for out of a corner, especially a rookie corner, is does he look lost? Does he look overmatched? And both of those answers are no for Max Melton, which is a very good step. And Garrett Williams, by metrics, is a top corner, one of the top corners in the league through 7 weeks. And this is their biggest test yet. This is their biggest test yet. And Brandon Ayuk, large chunk plays when they played San Francisco. And, Justin Herbert threw for, around 300 yards, but the bend, don't break mentality of this defense was able to keep them out of the end zone. Two things are possible on Sunday. Tyreek Hill has a vintage day. The Cardinals can't withstand that. If they hold those two at bay in some capacity, 60%, 70% of what their traditional output is with Tua at quarterback, Cardinals very well could win this game. I think that while the offense is obviously the most important thing for the Cardinals because of the defensive state and where it's at, this game specifically, Tua coming back after missing a handful of games due to concussion, Tyreek Hill ready to eat, Jaylen Waddle ready to eat, I don't see it in the middle. I don't see Tyreek 2 for 20 or 6 for 150. I don't see it in the middle. I don't see it in the middle to Tyreek like 5 for 35. I don't see it. It's either going to be a lot or it's going to be a little. And the Cardinals' win probability is heavily weighted on the outcome of those matchups between Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle and the young corners for the Cardinals. It's going to be fascinating to watch. It's going to be a great litmus test for the young guys. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. The offense has to thrive. Surprise, surprise. Next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy, man. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less than your projected stats. You can win up to 100 times your G's. 2 players to 6 players, more or less than their projected stats. Super easy, man. Deposits, quick. You can make an entry in 60 seconds or less. They have options for so many sports, not just football. I mean, the NBA's in full swing now. There's NBA games almost every night. You can dive in at PrizePicks. And on top of all of that, say you do, cash, you can get your withdrawal back into your account, back into your bank account, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. It is so quick. It makes it so much more fun to play daily fantasy sports. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by Pre-Alcohol by Z Biotics. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on getting up, working out if I feel like it, starting work early, which I love to do. It's an awesome, awesome thing. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by Z Biotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. In this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnNFL at checkout. Z Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. If you want to go leave a review wherever, it's something that, I'm just happy that you're here. But, if you want to go show a little love, I'm all for it also. So the offense. After last week's win, I started to get this very familiar feeling. It's happened every year since James Conner was signed by the Cardinals. At some point in the first 10 weeks, it becomes abundantly clear that this offense really works at its highest when James Conner is featured. And that's obvious. Okay, that's not the amount by which James Conner is featured continues to incrementally grow up because it's kind of like a cheat code. It's an easy button. And it's a huge testament to James Conner for sure. And it's also a trap that the Cardinals have found themselves in the last couple seasons. The pass game has to be more of an impactful entity for the Cardinals to win games. And listen, all these things, everydayers, you're smart. You know this. And this is a perfect time, just like every new week is a perfect time to unload a little bit of the freight off of James Conner's shoulders and put it more on quick drop passes, throws to Trey McBride, throws to Marvin Harrison Jr., to Michael Wilson, to Greg Dortch, whatever it is, extension, like, what did they call them? Whatever it was, like little drop-off passes that are like an extension of the running game. That's more what I'd like to see the wrinkle of this Sunday. And you know what? On top of that, Amari Gianmarcato, Trey Benson, there's got to be a running back in the backfield that can produce in some capacity, not named James Conner. It's just something that can't happen. It just can't happen. And this, we'll see the maturity of the coaching staff of Drew Petzing to notice that this is not sustainable. And it's great. And it's why they won. I mean, James Conner ripped off, it was a catch and run, but he ripped off a huge chunk game that set up the game-winning field goal last week. This is not downplaying the importance of James Conner. It's embracing it and understanding that if you want it to continue at the level that it's at, he needs to not be touching the ball as much. And by continuing at the level it's at, it's yards per carry, it's touchdowns, it's things like that. It's not just yardage. I'm not a dummy. I mean, every day I get to say like 2 dumb things a month. That's my quota. I know his numbers would go down if he touches the ball less. So just for the comments. This is a perfect time to explore a little bit more. Well, why not do it in week 1? We didn't know what this offense was. We didn't know what the defense was. We didn't know anything. This is a time to feature Trey McBride more, and it could be run 5 yards, turn around. He's 6'5". He can break tackles. Like anything that moves the ball down the field that doesn't have to deal with James Conner actually touching the ball. The more they do that with positive plays, the more they do that with first downs, the less he has to actually touch the ball and save the world. Because that's what James Conner's role has been. Okay, go save it. That's a look at Kyler Murray. That's a look at the wide receivers. That's a look at Drew Petzing. That's a look at everybody. That needs to change. Lickety-splitter. James Conner, like the wear and tear is going to be there. He's a human being. And then if you get in a situation where James Conner gets hurt, that is a not great situation to be in with a team that has such a fragile win-loss record, such a tough schedule coming up still, and, you know, aspirations of actually being relevant this season in some capacity. That's what I'd like to see from the offense. Restraint with James Conner's touches. Finding other ways. And you know what? If it doesn't work, then that's something that's a problem. You know the root of the problem, and that problem can be fixed or it won't be, and then maybe changes will be made down the road. But until you don't just give James Conner the ball every time and you kind of lose a flow in the passing game, you're not going to find out what this passing game's true capacity is. And I hope they do that Sunday. Less touches. Everything inside, you know, the red zone, James Conner. Everything, if they're backed up inside their 10, James Conner. Like situationally, give him the important touches. See if you can find some world where, you know, Trey Benson, Amari Mercado, Michael Carter, somebody can have some meaningful touches for this team and provide a spark without James Conner touching the ball. Be a huge step forward for this offense. Be a huge step forward for this offense and maintaining the health of James Conner in the process. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. What can't happen on Sunday if the Cardinals want to get a dub? We'll talk about it next. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook for a reason, number one. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It's a one-stop shop, man. The Cardinals are around a 3-point dog on the road, which it's funny how it used to be home teams would just get 3 points or give 3 points for being at home. Things have kind of crunched. It's a little bit different now. But with Tua most likely coming back, the books have the Arizona Cardinals as 3-point road dogs, which is about right. So if you want to put some cheese on there and you haven't started with FanDuel yet, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Ooh. I don't know, man. This is they've been a sleeping giant, the Dolphins offense has without Tua. So one thing that, needs to happen, and I'll just, tack on here before going to things that can't, the Cardinals need to get some pressure. I mean, they got to Justin Herbert a couple times, which helped. But more than not, he was standing in the backfield, and every day, as you know, I say it like this, he's just having a tea party in the backfield for them, just picking apart defenses. Tua can do the same thing. And he's got much more talented receivers, and he's got better running backs, and it's at home, and he's coming back from a few weeks, so the crowd's going to be wild. Like, the Cardinals need to get pressure. The thing is that can't happen. Tyreek Hill can't go nuts. That's number one, number two, number three, number four, number five. You can't have an 8 for 150 and 2 touchdown day for Tyreek Hill. It just can't happen because it stagnates the ability to stop the run also, because you always have to watch over the top. So this is where you'll throw in Budda Baker, Jaylen Thompson, Taylor-Demerson if he gets some reps. I'd like to see him starting to get some more reps at strong safety. And maybe, I don't know if you move Jaylen Thompson down to the slot, which he's played a little bit at times in his career. Like if Taylor-Demerson gives the Cardinals a better chance over the top to defend, let the kid ride. Like Sean Murphy-Bunting was in practice. I'm assuming, as I said, last week or 10 days ago, I'm assuming that Max Melton's going to start to get the majority of reps. Garrett Wilson is an every down guy. But Tyreek Hill getting over the top for a 70-yard touchdown at any portion of this game can't happen. Can't happen. It's something that the Cardinals don't have the infrastructure to come back from, nor stop if it starts. Because we very well know that once Tua and Tyreek Hill find a vibe, find a groove against a specific defense, it's going to be a long 60 minutes for that defense. So the Cardinals cannot allow that to happen. And then, just to piggyback on that, the big plays are monstrous. Devon Achane is a 75-yard touchdown run after a touchback waiting to happen every time he touches the ball. Big plays can happen. And the Cardinals have kind of lived by that credo of death by 1,000 cuts, but they've survived and forced field goals. Some of it was against San Francisco, and the San Francisco got in the end zone. And then, no touchdowns against the Chargers, and they carved them up between the 20s. Tackling an open space. This is something the Cardinals have been really good at, and then oh no, cringy, not so great at important times. Jaylen Thompson is one of the latter that we've seen uncharacteristic misses in open field tackles from him. Mac Wilson is probably the belle of the ball when it comes to that for the Cardinals so far. Open field tackling is so important against such a slippery position group from the running backs, a skill position group on the offense for the Dolphins. They're 5 deep, 3 running backs, 2 receivers. They've got to be able to tackle in the open field. Kyler Murray cannot stall this offense. Can't happen. Every week, he has issues. It's tougher to defend the situation we're currently watching. And I'm not by any stretch saying that Kyler Murray is not the guy like a lot of people are. A lot of people have been saying it since he was drafted. So it's easy. Confirmation bias, whenever anything goes wrong, it's easy to say something without any, really looking into it. I know there's film out there now saying that, Kyler Murray's missing reads. Okay. That the Marvin Harris Jr. wide open for a touchdown thing that now everybody's going after with in the Chargers game. Kyler Murray had no time. The fact that Kyler Murray got the ball to Trey McBride with a zip of a pass for a first down on a back shoulder on a line throw that had just a football wide hole to be able to get the ball to Trey McBride for a first down, that was an incredible play. He didn't have time to plant and throw the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. when he was wide open. The offensive line didn't hold up. Kyler Murray needs to, I don't know what they can do sustainably for the rest of the year to be able to keep him, comfortable in the pocket. Maybe it's, the rolling out of the pocket can be a thing. He loves throwing off, on the run, off his back foot while, in contained, while controlled. They need to figure it out. And then, on top of that, like a part of that is, with that, well, it'll be interesting to see what Marvin Harrison Jr. brings to the table. Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins said yesterday something interesting, that Jalen Ramsey, former lockdown corner, who's still, a formidable force in a secondary with the Dolphins, pressured the quarterback. I think in whether it be pure blitz packages where he came after the quarterback or was broken play, he was coming after the quarterback. He got 3 pressures on the quarterback. So it'll be interesting last week. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And if he gets tasked with Marvin Harrison Jr., if Marvin Harrison Jr. has to go up against one of the better corners we've seen in the last 15 years, they need to at least get him some targets early, get it going. And at this point, because of what we saw with the too high with the bracketed coverage last week, because he had a couple dropsies, because there's still not a whole lot of cohesion through 6 weeks. Well, or 6 games that he played. I think this is a good time to just force him the ball in a way where it's wide receiver screens, it's little slants, it's little things around the line of scrimmage that can get his juices flowing. Because when people were outraged about his body language, there's a couple things that go to play. One, he's not getting the targets he got his entire life. 2, he's never gotten this coverage at this elite of level in his entire life. So yeah, it's tough being a wide receiver sometimes as a rookie. It's tough, especially in a run-first offense. So just pump the brakes, but I do think forcing the ball to him, quote unquote, in the sense that getting him easy touches early on around the line of scrimmage would only benefit. Get him 3-4 receptions in the first quarter for first downs, little 5-yard outs, little things like that, just to get the juices flowing. I think it'll do nothing but benefit this team. The can't happen list. Turnovers. The Green Bay game is still like seared into my cerebellum with a couple fumbles. And that's something the Cardinals need to be clean. And they've been really good. With fumbles. I think Kyler Murray lost one in week 1. Kyler Murray threw a couple bad interceptions, one to Nick Bosa right into his breadbasket, and the other that inevitably returned to the Cardinals' possession with the Michael Wilson possession last week. Turnovers, they've been pretty good. I think that this is something that they just need to be as clean as possible because you just can't afford to give this offense any extra possessions. You just can't. And then the final one. Cardinals are 2-1 in the last 3 weeks, even though they've been terrible with this. You're playing with fire if your offense is only on the field 25 minutes a game. The difference between 25 minutes and 28 minutes is everything. I equate it to the Richter scale. It's every number that goes up is massively more impactful than the number below. The fact that the Cardinals were only on the field for 25 minutes last week and still got a win, that they were dominated by time of possession against San Francisco and still got a win on the road, that can't happen. And going back to my last segment, they need to figure out a way to be able to throw themselves down the field and continue to eat clock instead of just feeding James Conner. They've got to figure it out. If not just for this week, but just for the rest of the year. If the Cardinals can go on the road and get a win against Miami and move to 4-4 through 8 weeks, this will be the best case scenario any rational person would have expected with this roster as currently constructed. With B.J. Ojulari being out for the year, with Darius Robinson on IR before the season started, with the defensive roster as it is, the Cardinals get a dub. We're going to be having different conversations on Monday. Very light, very fringy, but different conversations. I'm excited to do it. Either way, remember, without you, there is no me. I will be posting the Monday show on Sunday afternoon immediately following the game. You want to check it out? I'll talk to you then.